Hey, it's me, Jenny, your host of the Career Flipper podcast, back with another Cocoon episode for April 2025. If you're new here, hi, I'm so glad you're here. And if you've been riding this wave with me since the start, thank you. So for those newbies, let me explain what this whole Cocoon episode thing is about. Back when I launched this podcast, I knew I wanted to feature other people's stories. Regular, amazing humans from around the world who've made these bold, brave, and messy career changes. But I also knew that it's only fair if I share mine as well. But that feels really vulnerable. So I challenged myself, and that's what Cocoon episodes are. They're these once a month solo episodes, always on the last Tuesday of every month, where I pause and just blab to you about what's been going on, what I'm learning, challenges I'm facing, the good, the bad, and everything in between. It's kind of like I'm sending you a voice memo. Oh, I love me a voice memo. But anyways, there are no guests on here. There's no tidy before and after. It's just me still figuring it out, still flipping, still trying to stay scrappy. And I name them Cocoon episodes because that's really where the transformation happens, right? In that quiet cocoon in the dark when things turn to mush. It's kind of like when your phone feels like it's going to upgrade and things kind of go wonky and they're not working right away. It's that in between place where things feel formless and confusing, but also full of possibility. So if you've been feeling like you're not quite who you were, but not quite who you're becoming either, well, you're in good company. So let's take a breath together and dive in. So it's April 2025. This is my third official month working back in corporate post layoff. And yeah, we're doing it. We're going into the office twice a week. Things are rolling. Things are not as attached to a sob fest on the drive home. Things are feeling like they're coasting along. The people are great. I'm getting to know more people and I like what I'm learning. But I've got to admit that, when I said yes to the job I'm in now, this full-time role with health insurance and a W-2, hallelujah, so grateful. But I also had this deep, quiet voice inside whispering, are you giving up on yourself? And what sounds so silly, but I really, really believed I was. I thought that taking a job meant the creative stuff had lost, that I had lost because I hadn't been able to do both in the past. So I would always give up this creative side of myself because I thought work always came first. And while work, obviously, making a paycheck is very important, you don't have to put yourself and the things that you value completely to the side. This version of success that I used to chase was, I don't know, it was really loud, but I think it was also really scared because I didn't have anything else lined up. I really thought, let me build my personal brand and let me quit my 9-to-5 and never look back. I never really fully believed that, but I did know that because I didn't have the 9-to-5 then, that I had to figure something out and do something different. And so I went in the complete opposite direction. It was very black or white for me. And the truth that I have landed on lately over the past few months of being back, sometimes not quitting, whether it's a creative stuff on the side, whatever it is, not quitting is the bravest thing you can do. Sometimes quitting is okay. Sometimes it's the right decision because it means you're starting something else. But sometimes not quitting also is the bravest thing you can do. And sometimes keeping the lights on is the dream, because keeping the lights on gives you the light to be able to, for me, look at the furniture that I'm fixing up. I wouldn't be able to work on it if there was no light, My creativity didn't disappear just because I clocked back in to a job that's hybrid. I'm still here, and it's still here. In fact, my creativity is thriving. Every Sunday, I basically skip to the garage with my paint splattered overalls, my work boots. I bring my guitar because I am creating my own music to serenade the furniture. And I'm not kidding. If you're on Instagram or TikTok, you can hear my cheesy little furniture songs. One particularly I'm proud of, Who Will Save the Furniture? It's a cover of Jules, Who Will Save Our Soul? Yeah, that's where I'm at. And I am having a blast, and I am diving into all of my projects. I have it outlined on my board what I need to do because I have that Sunday to do it, and I'm cranking away, and I'm very strategic and operations oriented. So I'm thankful for those skills that I can create and do multiple things at one time. But just this past Sunday, I was out there sanding this little cute coffee table, and I just stopped and I looked around, and there was like a squirrel jumping from the telephone pole across to a tree. It looked like he was flying. It was kind of crazy. There was a butterfly that kept kind of flying around me, which was really sweet and special. I could hear the sounds of the cars driving by on the street next to where our alley is. I could hear the breeze rustling through the trees, and I could feel the sawdust on my hands. I could see the paint from my other project dried on my arms. I realized, and it's not that I didn't know it, but moments like this, I just love this. I love the dust. I love the mess. I love the transformation. I love that moment when a beat up dresser gets its first coat of paint and you can almost see the hope melting back into it. I love that I get to do this on the weekends, that I have a space in the home where I live that I can do this. And the metaphor, it's just sitting right there, right? Like, this is what second chances look like. They're not flashy. They're not perfect. Just a little patience, a little effort, and the belief that something still has value. And I think we all need that reminder sometimes that second chances are allowed, that you can begin again, not because you've failed, but because you're still growing and there is a lot more to learn. But let me be real for a second here. Like, I didn't always believe that. I mean, gosh, before I got laid off, I didn't believe that. The last 2 years, there were days where I felt so embarrassed by how lost I was. Like, I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't get a job. I had some wonderful small scale consulting projects, but for whatever reason, life happens and those sometimes end. And then here I am hosting a podcast that came to me in a dream, which sounds kind of crazy, but here we are. And how could I go and share these stories with others that were helping me and became like mentors, but feeling like I had no idea who I was anymore. I felt like I was a mess. But healing, real, freaking messy, inconvenient healing, it takes time. And I'm the type of person where change takes me a little bit longer. I process things a little differently. Not that I'm a unique snowflake, and I think some people listening can relate, but it might take me a little bit longer because I'm a very big feelings person. I walk into a room and I pick up the energy. And I am just like, that's how I am with situations. And so I know that about myself. And I know that it takes time, and I know that I need to continue to give myself the time to process. And in this particular case, it sometimes involves alleyway furniture, a sander, and a pair of thrifted overalls that are so comfortable, by the way. But anyway, all of this brings me to something that I've actually been a little shy about. And I want to bring up in this episode, and it's about ads. Yes, ads, advertisements in this podcast. I've been paying for the show out of pocket, hosting fees, editing tools, my distributor, the content that I make, all the things, Canva, all of that. And I'm cool with that. Like, I did this because I was genuinely curious, and I'm not going to change that at this time. However, even though I've, really had the option to promote something to kind of help cover some of those costs in the beginning, I held back. Because the second I even thought about asking people to, I don't know, like buy something and put an ad, this capitalist voice in my head piped up like, "You're greedy, inauthentic, you've sold your soul for $9.99, stuff like that. Um, and also, this kind of imposter syndrome, like, who are you to have an ad in your podcast when you're not on any top 10 lists? All of these things that we tell ourselves. But what I've realized, and I have to fight almost every day, that voice is lying. And sharing something I worked hard on is not greedy. It's honest. It's sustainable. And honestly, it's part of the dream too. So I want to talk about these ads that I'm going to start putting in my episodes so you know the real story behind them. And I don't know, I'd love your feedback at the end. Back in 2019, my friend Matt Beckwith from the customer service industry, hi Matt, he referred me to Udemy to create a customer service training course. But my first instinct was no. I did not feel qualified. I was in a manager role at that time. I just didn't feel like I could do any of that. I had no certifications. I had no degrees in it. Obviously my English degree from San Diego State, but that wasn't for customer service. Everything I learned was from doing the job. Like, who am I to create a course to teach other people when I've just learned by figuring it out and making mistakes? But the idea really stuck in my head. And 6 months later, they reached back out to me just to check in and see if I was still interested. And, I appreciated that. And they really believed in me before I really believed in myself. And I got to make a course. Best Practices for Beginners, your customer service toolbox. It's fun. It's packed with real world stuff, and I let my personality shine. There are jokes about cheese and awkward customer moments that anyone in the service world could relate to. And then a couple years later, they asked me to do another one. And this one is called Smart Tips for Customer Service. It's shorter, like bite-sized lessons. And honestly, creating those courses reminded me that I do have value to offer, that my experiences and learning through experience is incredibly valuable to someone who might be starting out working in customer service. And they are both live on Udemy. My hair is pretty blonde in both of them. I was just back in the day, which I love it. But, they became a way for me to expand what I had been learning throughout my career. And at this point, almost 17,000 people around the world have taken these courses. I get a small cut when someone enrolls, and that little cut now can help keep this podcast going. So if you or someone you know works in customer service or just wants to get better at it, I would love for you to check them out. They're linked in the show notes, but you can also go to thecareerflipper.com/courses. And it's a small thing, but for me, it's a second chance too. It's a reminder that I don't have to give up on my creativity, on my love for storytelling. I just have to keep finding new ways to share it. And that's one way, and it ultimately helps keep the podcast going. So if that is just like too greedy or whatever, I would love your feedback. Um, Maybe that's me just searching for validation right now, but yeah, I would love your feedback if you do catch an episode. So, on that note, that's enough rambling for now. But if this episode made you feel seen, if it helped you believe a little more in the power of second chances, I would love to hear from you. Send me a DM about what your favorite part was or what resonated. Email me, hello@thecareerflipper.com. Share it with a friend who's maybe also in a career flip transformation and they're feeling stuck or confused. It might just be nice to let them know that they're not alone in how they're feeling and what they're going through. And for you listening in, if you are getting that imposter syndrome-y, loud voice drowning out the truth, just remind yourself that you're allowed to pivot. You're allowed to start again. If the junky dresser can get a makeover, you can too. I'll be back this Thursday with a new episode featuring a career flipper telling their story. Until then, stay scrappy, stay kind, and trust the cocoon. And always ask yourself, what's the best that could happen?